Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a terrific day ahead of you. This video is going to be a very interesting and enjoyable one for myself to record because there are two parts to it. One, the team selection, which has many interesting selections and many interesting dilemmas, particularly this time around, and more than I thought we'd have. And in addition to that, we've also got my transfer plans. Transfer plans which have changed in the last hour or two in comparison to what I was going to do going forward. And I'm actually going to touch a little bit on strategy, and given mine's quite different to others, we can again go into that as well. So I'm very much looking forward to it, and there's not much else to say apart from that, so we can get into it. Before we look at the team, there is one thing I would like to show you, however, and ask that you consider, and that is this: only if you are looking to captain Mohamed Salah. And I will explain why. This is the best offer Fantasy Football Hub have ever had to join, most likely. There's already a 50% discount on the membership, but in addition to that, should you get a red arrow this game week and sign up to Fantasy Football Hub, you will get all your money back. If you get a green arrow, then you just continue with your membership as per, and you'll probably be quite happy with the service as a result. Now, the terms and conditions are very simple. Send an email, put your name, but the one thing is you have to captain the highest rated player on the AI tool this game week, which is Mohamed Salah, which is why I say that if you are interested in Mohamed Salah as a captain this week, then consider this, especially if you've been interested in FFH in the past. If not, then this probably isn't for you, and I would suggest to move on. But if you are, this is an absolute no-brainer to at least try for this game week. Moving on to the team, for the first time this season, Matt Sells may keep a clean sheet, and it is one of the better opportunities you will have in the season to do so. Playing West Ham at the moment is something that appears to be particularly attractive. And the reason I specified and emphasize more than specified at the moment is because they've signed Matthias Fernandes. I'm quite confident that the deal at least will get over the line very shortly, and they've signed another 6. Matthias Fernandes, I've watched him, as I'm sure many of you have, very competent player. If his partner in the other 6 that they've signed is also competent, they will improve tenfold as a side, and all of a sudden they won't be anywhere as near as easy to target. I'd say this is maybe the second last game week where we can look to see them in the same light before things considerably change for them, because those 2 recruits should massively help. So that's something to note about West Ham. But in terms of Sells now, he plays for one of the best defensive units in the league. He heavily contributes to that. I'd say there's some save potential here just between Bowen, Paquetá, and Callum Wilson, and also their wing backs. They'll maybe make 1 or 2 opportunities, half opportunities, take some shots. Obviously, Paquetá scored from range. Maybe we'll take another couple against Sells, and Sells should be able to deal with them on the most part. So whilst I wouldn't say the ceiling's super high, at least there's a save point on offer here, right? And then there's not too much of a decision to be made. We'll speak about Burnley versus Man United more in the next section and the section after, but when Sells has got West Ham at home, I think it just makes a lot of sense to start him here. That selection is one of the more obvious ones you will have seen in your time, but this one, maybe not so much. Williams starts for very similar reasons to Matt Sells. There's obviously some DEFCOIN points on offer, and there's some attacking upside on offer. He actually got very close to the bonus point system, to the bonus points last game week. He got 18, and I think if he had just hit 21, he would have got 2 bonus points, not even 1, and that comes without him hitting DEFCON or getting close, and no attacking returns. And 1 big chance created, which obviously helped, but that's it. So it's looking promising for him going forward. But the big omission from the starting lineup is Marco Correa, who I have called the best defender in the game this season, or at least from game week 1. So why? Why is he not in here? And very simply, I think Fulham score, and hence I'm interested in benching him. And I'm so adamant that Fulham give us at least a test, but I think they do score, that I really wouldn't mind putting a Steve ahead of him to have him first bench. Because as things stand now, I don't think Burnley get wiped the floor with at Old Trafford. Do I think they win? No, but I don't think United put them to the sword. With Cucurella, I think he concedes, so I'm going to bench him. Why do I think he concedes? Fulham are very well coached in these type of games. Defensively, they are super sound. They have the players in which to do it, and they're platformed so well by the manager, and he's a very good coach, right? Tactically as well. So when you put all of those things together, you can expect a good defensive performance. Just look at the last one against Man United. for all you want to say about them, they do still have a lot of attacking talent, right? Between Bruno and Mount and Cunha and Mbeumo, that is a lot of attacking talent to neutralize. Now, they're not being platformed in a way which really serves them, or at least in terms of the team, they're not being platformed as a team in a way that really serves them. And I think a lot of people disagree with how the system's being used, including myself. But nonetheless, it's still attacking talent you need to stop. Arsenal didn't do it particularly well, but they did, right? And I imagine that they will do something similar to us. Now, maybe we get over the line and win. That I wouldn't be surprised. But I wouldn't be surprised if we have a really tough game against them. And what I'm looking at is in those moments where maybe we commit a little bit more, in transition, in those counterattacks, or even just in a moment, they can hurt us because they've got enough quality. They have enough quality in transition on the break. But in particular, if they can get us, not so much when we're like a super settled block, but when they're just higher up the pitch, in a moment that's started quick and then slow down a bit, that's where between Iwobi, Josh King, Rodrigo Muniz, Raul Jimenez maybe off the bench, or depending on who starts, Harry Wilson, Adama Traore, predominantly for those transitions, they can hurt us. And for that reason, I'm going to bench him. I'm also not so sure he plays the really attacking role. I'm not sure if he looks to replicate the system he does against West Ham, where you have the left centre-back in Cucurella functioning as a left centre-back of a 3 in possession. If he does, then obviously his attacking threat has gone down. I wouldn't be surprised if he uses the diamond and Cucurella is playing this really attacking role. But I do think he's going to concede. And as such, I'm benching him. In terms of Aït-Nouri, the Algeria managers called him up. Apparently, he said that Aït-Nouri's fit. It would make sense because if you actually look at the injury, it's pure contact and there's nothing muscular about it. So it would make a lot of sense for Aït-Nouri to be back. With his attacking upside, I would expect him to certainly be a good option this week. Easiest place to keep a clean sheet at big game Brighton, definitely not, but I prefer it over Cucurella's chances. And likewise with Kirkes. The Arsenal attack without Havertz and Saka in this game doesn't scare me too much. I mean, between Martinelli playing the role that he's in, Gyökeres, Madueke, and Odegaard, it doesn't fill me with terror. And I think DEFCON potentially is on the table for Kirkes, very close to getting that against Newcastle as well, and maybe some attacking upside. But I just feel more confident in those clean sheets than I do Cucurella. Quite adamant Fulham are going to score, and as such, I'm benching him. And given I am benching Marc Cucurella for the fact that I think Fulham score, it only makes sense that out of the remaining recruits, I play Josh King. And there isn't too much more to it than that. Because it's not like there's Reinders or there's a fit Cole Palmer, whereby I have a real decision to make. It's between Esteve, who's away at Burnley, and I've bought Matthias Cunha, who we will come on to, and then Daniel Marlin, who's probably just not going to see the pitch until the 70th, 80th minute, right? Against a very strong defensive outfit in Crystal Palace. So with all those things being said, it only makes sense that Josh King starts. And you know what? If I think Fulham score, why not it be him? So that's that. The second thing you'll see, like I mentioned, is that Matthias Cunha is here in place of Cole Palmer. Now, it is my opinion that Cole Palmer will not play on Saturday at 12:30, and we'll see him back for Game Week 4 at the earliest, but we'll probably see him back for Game Week 4. However, if I were to erase reality from the second just before I made the move to now, and the sole goal I had in that moment was to optimize my team in FPL, I would not have made the move. With how I feel now, with what I know now, what I think I know now, I would not make the move. So if you are in the exact same position as me, and the position I will go on to explain, or similar, I would encourage you not to make the move, right? And here's why. When you look at my transfer plans, you will look at how I am trying to shape this team and what I'm trying to do with it. And that would be so much easier if I had 2 frees going into the break. So much easier. It's not so much for the fact I have sold Cole Palmer, which is actually where I loitered earlier. It's more so what I've prevented myself doing without taking a hit in Game Week 4 and the cash I've essentially committed to. Because can I really sell Matthias Cunha now? No, not really. Like I could in Game Week 4, but it's just unlikely. Unlikely I do that. Maybe I do, but it's unlikely. And I've essentially committed to this price point, a price point that I didn't love in midfield at the start of the season, and one I think I've probably made a mistake going to get. Now, at the time, my thought process was phenomenal player, so many routes to points, really good fixture on paper. I'm good enough with Man United. Go at the time. And I didn't want to lose the 0.1, which again, that was probably a misstep as well, right? Now, and it's not got anything to do with Grimsby. I've simply reverted to my stance that I had in transfer plans on Monday, and that's I just don't trust them enough. And I don't think they're going to put Burnley into the squad. And you know what? I can see him returning, but I just don't think it's going to be this massive score where it justifies the transfer. I mean, potentially having to lock in this price point, and if I don't want it, then it'd be another transfer. The 2 transfers, not wasted, but used in this scenario. And it's for that reason that I think it would have been better if I just kept Cole Palmer and played one of the 3 on the bench instead of him. But that's not the case. It's done. Hopefully it goes well on Saturday and we go from there. But that was just, I wanted to explain this. The other 2 are about as obvious as it gets. Like, I'm not benching Salah pretty much ever, right? And Iliman Ndiaye, with the strength of my current squad, which, well, I don't have much depth in midfield at the moment, given Daniel Marlin's not really been playing. And the fact that I think Correa concedes, and the fact that I've got Cunha starting, so I don't really want to play Estev. I've got Ndiaye in here. Now, am I super high on his prospects this week? Well, one good thing is that he didn't play in the cup, right? So that bodes well, I think, for his minutes in game week 3. They have, however, signed Tyler Dibbling for a big fee, and he's a top player. So soon enough, he's going to come in on the right. I'm quite confident in that. You've obviously got Jack Grealish. Now, this could be the perfect outcome if Iliman Ndiaye is to go to 10. However, he played Carlos Alcaraz there in the cup. He played Dewsbury Hall there in the league twice now. And what I think is that he really wants someone in the middle who will also give him that defensive output. That's not to say Ndiaye won't work, but you'll get more out of those 2. I hope he changed to that from my FPL standpoint. If he doesn't, who knows? Maybe Ndiaye's expected minutes out of nowhere get reduced and I will have to reassess. But for now, at least, he'll start game week 3. I'm quite confident. And we will go from there. There are 2 things I want to say in this department before I go on to the captaincy section, which has been very interesting this game week. Firstly, I already expressed that I'm not so high on our prospects against Fulham. You look at what Fulham can do and how difficult they can make it to play through them. And who does that remind you of? Crystal Palace, game week 1, right? And if the dynamics are such where João Pedro is functioning in a similar type of role, right? For example, we don't play Liam Delap. João Pedro is the 9. And that's something he spoke about in these type of games, using João Pedro to combine. And it's Willian Esteva as the 10. Is João Pedro going to have a great game? I personally think this could be quite challenging for him, this particular one, right? Just given what Fulham pose. Not one of the best fixtures to have on the calendar, as I'm sure most managers will tell you, right, in the Premier League. So I don't think you need to buy him this week. In the long term, I think he's the best forward, as I have done since pre-season. But for this particular game week, I think Fulham are going to give us a real run for our money. And I'm okay not having him. Look, obviously he can do damage. He's a top player and I love him. But this particular game, I think, will be challenging. Evan Nilsson, this Spurs-Tottenham game is really difficult to call because with Bournemouth, they almost suck you in, especially the bigger sides who aren't going to sit in this deep block. They suck you in and you're going to play a bit of their game, right? Whether you like it or not, you are going to play this transitional basketball-style game to some extent. Now, obviously Spurs have been so solid defensively. Thomas Frank is very flexible as a coach. He can coach a game like this. He has a game model which is very transition-based and he's good at coaching that, right? So maybe this game turns out to be one where Bournemouth and Spurs really go at each other. Or maybe Spurs looks at it and he sees the weakness Bournemouth have against deeper blocks. And because he doesn't have an ego in that sense, and he doesn't, he's so good in that sense. And because he's got that flexibility and the capability to be flexible, right? And he's actually good at creating those systems. He's just like, all right, you know what? Break us down. We'll just kill you in transition. And all of a sudden for Evan Nilsson, he's trying to break a block. His teammates are trying to break a block down for him, and he's coming up against Mickey van der Ven and Romero with little space. All of a sudden, that's not with João Paulini in front. Yeah, that's not so easy. That's really not so easy. So this game could go 1,000,001 different ways. He could haul, he could blank, and I think it's very fair for one to take a slightly more Swiss stance on this for that fact. I wouldn't be surprised if Spurs kept a clean sheet or Bournemouth scored 4. Well, 3. 4's a little bit of a stretch, but 3. Right? So that's how I see this potentially going, right? Those are all the different scenarios. I think they're all quite realistic. If I absolutely have to say, I think Spurs edge it, right? I think Spurs edge it in this one. But they've got enough quality, Bournemouth. And Chris Wood, we are going to discuss in the captaincy section. Let's discuss Matthias Cunha a little bit more, because you don't even see the Vice armband on him. As I expressed earlier, I am not convinced. I'm not trusting enough in Manchester United that they really hurt Burnley. For the simple fact that after what Grimsby did to Man United, I think that would give Burnley an increased sense of confidence. And that increased sense of confidence in Scott Parker, the fact that he's got more belief now, I think it's natural to have more belief now than he did prior, even if it's by a little bit, means that I wouldn't be surprised if he tweaks the system just a little bit to make it even harder if he wasn't thinking of doing so earlier, right? Maybe he had made some tweaks, but I think he'll make even more now following that Grimsby performance because they'll really see an opportunity here to go to Old Trafford and get some points. And what a day that would be for their away fans. And that's primarily the reason. I just don't trust him. It's not super tactical. Obviously, I've spoken about some things this week, right? For example, look how well Fulham did to limit those balls into the pivot by cutting the passing lane and having their front two lines of the pressing structure very compact. The physicality they had in the three behind Josh King and Muniz in Iwobi, Sasha Lukic, and Sander Berg, right? So even if the ball got into that pivot, jump on them, create a duel, and it'd be very hard for them to keep. Use the wing-backs narrow to affect the 10s. Maybe now Scott Parker's seen how useful that can be, and they've just, obviously United have just gone out the cup, and he uses something similar. In which case, do I completely trust Man United to put them away? No, not as much as I did when I filmed Everything You Need. And it's honestly not got so much to do with Grimsby. Like, it really doesn't. I just have reverted back to my initial stance. Because like I said on X with Grimsby, if they started their first choice 11, they would have beaten badly, in my opinion, right? Because there is a big gulf in quality there. And you could have seen that in the second half. Or at least the second half of the second half. That was quite apparent. So yeah, I just don't trust him enough to give him the armband. And also his team, as opposed to him. And then these two. Very simply. Actually, no, this isn't as simple as I was going to make it out to be. Without Havertz and Saka, I think he'll take a more defensive approach off the ball in comparison to what he already does because their press isn't going to be as good. So I think that man-to-man press that they go with, that transitions into this deep mid to low block, there'll be less triggers for them to go man-to-man aggressively high. And I think you'll just see them sit in that block. Then you consider what we discussed yesterday in the video about Florian Wirtz and Dominic Szoboszlai, that dynamic of Szoboszlai last season being the most advanced midfielder on the right. This season is Wirtz and he tends to the left. He doesn't have as much interaction with Salah nearly at all. You don't have Trent behind him. And I think you can see Salah getting a little bit more isolated in this game and it being a little bit harder for him. There's obviously all the good factors like in transition. If Mikel Arteta allows for that, he can kill you better than anyone. On that side, Calafiori's advancements as well, leaving that space. So he could have a lot of 1v1 situations with Gabriel in transition, relatively speaking, in areas that he can really hurt him in. And he's the best big six game player we've ever seen. And as a person, he's just a winner. He just is a pure winner. So you have to take that into account. I think these type of intangibles are so important, right? So he's got all that going for him. But I can't shake the fixture when Chris Wood has West Ham at home. So many routes to points, including the aerial route, right, which I really like having because they've been really poor at defending crosses and set pieces. He looks sharp. Even against Palace, like I think he should have scored that first chance, but it was a nice movement for him to get there in the first place. And yeah, Forest should just beat them fairly convincingly. He looks good. There's a lot of goals on offer. He's got penalties. He's got routes to points. Yeah, I'd love the expected minutes to be 90, but even if there's not, there's enough on offer for me when Salah's got some challengings that he's facing. And it's still probably the best defense in the country in Arsenal, right? So you got to give him their credit as well. For those reasons, I'm choosing Chris Wood. And to be fair, he was number one on Everything You Need yesterday. Lastly, my transfer plans, which I think are vitally important. And if I had a realistic genie right here, right, which wouldn't grant me anything I want, but would grant me some amount of free transfers that I think's realistic, I would ask for 3. It would probably give it, and I would use it in this way. Thirdly, on the 5th defender spot, I quite like having a lot of depth in defense this year. I think there's some real value to be gained from just switching on the forwards, given the number of options, given the attacking quality in the league's just got higher and higher and higher, so it can be easier for another team to pop off out of nowhere, and then just pick defenders that are really solid in terms of expected minutes, have at least some attacking upside, some DEFCON maybe. You're going to get different weightings with players. Clean sheet prospects overall, given the quality of their team's defense. And if I've got 5 or even 4, as I do now, and really solid ones, the rotation that should gain me points in itself. And not having to use transfers on it and using transfers elsewhere, that would be lovely. So Van de Ven would be third. More so, Josh King, because I quite like the idea of also having a lot of depth to my attackers. There's enough cheap options this year that at least 1 or 2 or 3 at those cheaper price points are going to pop off. You can have all of them, especially if you get on them early, but as and when the trend emerges. And then from there, again, just rotate them with the fixtures in accordance to that and their form. I quite like that as well. With Josh King, obviously the expected minutes are slightly lower and he's not as established as these guys, right? I don't trust him as much for the output. More so than anything else, and far more so than Josh King, and especially Mickey van der Ven, Daniel Marlin. Because that spot, for example, you look at other teams, especially with their cheaper defenses, is a Morgan Rogers, or if not, a Tijani Reinders and so on. It's a Semenyo, it's a Kudus. I would like my spot there with a player who plays, right? So that's what I'm looking to do. I've got 2.9 million in the bank. And a team that I've been really bullish on this season, Spurs. And according to Fabrizio Romano, just before I recorded, Xavi Simons. He'll probably come in about 7.5. I'd like a bit of that. Really good carrier, good ball striking, super intelligent, and has the mental profile to cope with the Premier League from the off. So he's someone I'm certainly interested in. Dango Atara, maybe a Newcastle mid. All of them are on the table, and at least one of them will come good. So I would like to move Marlin into there. Right, so that's what I'm looking at going forward. Getting these 3 things done, with obviously Marlin being the priority. And then, in terms of the chip strategy, I'm really not interested in free hit 6. I've already got Triple Forest. Chelsea versus Brighton, I mean, I've got João Pedro, I've got Cucurella. If I need Palmer, okay, we can consider that, at least by game week 4. But aside from that, I've still got enough Chelsea. And then City. Well, I bought Aïnouri specifically for the fact that I thought he had good prospects in game week 1 and free hit 6. He would prevent me from having to play it. And in the middle, he certainly got some value. And after, he's got a lot of value as well, right? So that's that, right? And then you sell Salah, you sell a forward, you bring in Haaland, you get 0.5 saved from Haaland over Salah, you reinvest that in the midfielder. That's a really strong squad. Oh, and Bournemouth. They've got Leeds away. I have Evan Nelson. So it's looking overall really strong. I really like it. And as such, I like gearing my transfer plans towards this. Make sure I have 2 and 6. And even if I don't, okay, I'll take a hit because the restructuring is one where I think the upside is there. Salah's Palace away, tough, always tough for him, always tough for basically everyone. Haaland's got Burnley at home. That could be a lot better. And then keep it for the long term. And then basically between 7 and 12, I will look to free hit one of those weeks because a lot of people are wildcarding in 8. They are wildcarding a bit earlier. They are free hitting in 6. So they don't have to optimize their teams for that period, whereas I will. And 7 to 12, right? They only have to do one or the other. I have to do it for all of it with a strategy of wildcard 13. So to have a bailout week where I can basically skip the week and optimize for the rest is probably going to be so helpful. Hence why I'm looking at 7 to 12. Arsenal obviously swing into 7, hence why people are looking at, and there's swings in 8 in terms of the fixtures, hence why people are looking at a wildcard then. So with the transfers I've discussed, maybe I could look at bringing in some Arsenal assets as well. So those are all things I'm considering. But apart from the Arsenal assets in 7, I'd say the plan is still pretty much okay. I don't have as many transfers at this point as I would have liked, and to be honest, that's my own doing. Did I need to make one last week? In hindsight, probably no. Did I need to make one this week? Certainly no. But it's done. I'm sure there's some upsides for me to gain, and I've brought in good players. But for now, that's the strategy, and I think it could work. That is all she wrote for this one, ladies and gentlemen. That will be the team that lines up for Game Week 3, most likely for myself, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Last weekend's football, the games weren't that interesting, both in terms of when you saw them beforehand on the fixture list, but also in terms of how they played out. This one's a really, really good weekend, especially with the scheduling. So very much looking forward to that. Before we head off, if you are interested in a better FPL experience and you're just fed up of all the negatives that come with it, feeling down on a Sunday night after a bad game week, feeling that you just struggling to be decisive, you're tired of losing to your friends, all of those things, I can guarantee you, if you engage to some extent at least in my community, we can help with that. We absolutely can. And not only will you eliminate those negatives, but Imagine how you'll feel when you are winning the mini league, right? When you are a bit more decisive, and then you can spend some more time on something else. You can spend it with your wife and kids. So many positives, I think, to be gained from joining the community. Never mind just FPL, but the impact it could actually have in your life as well. So that is of interest to you, consider checking out the website and consider joining, even if it's for a month. Just try it, especially if you can afford it, right? Just try it, and I assure you won't regret it, right? If you do that and you engage. So I very much look forward to seeing you in there. Have a magnificent day. I shall see you very shortly for solving your problems, and good luck for what lies ahead.